Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Will everyone please rise and extend your hands as if receiving a gift and follow me silently as I open up in our opening prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Requital. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray. Amen. Please be seated. Once again, it is our pleasure to come before the true believers, the guests, Muhammad. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah in the person of Master Farah Muhammad, the great Mahdi, who has come and will come in the year of 1930. He is the manifestation of Almighty God Allah. We shall remember him and praise him forever, and we will honor him by naming our children after him for at least the next 1,000 years. And we thank our father, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, for raising from among us the field Supreme Minister, Ali Mahdi Muhammad. All praises due to Allah Muhammad. How's everyone?
Fine, sir.
All praises due to Allah Muhammad. As we said, this is a blessing and a day of reward. All praises due to Allah Muhammad. We would like to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. And welcome those who are watching our live broadcast on Facebook and YouTube, streaming from Elijah Muhammad's Temple of Islam here at 387 Avon Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. Area code 07108. I am your brother minister, Jamil Ali, and I am your host for this afternoon. It is truly an honor to be your master of ceremony for today's temple service. Today, we have a life-saving message for you from the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, entitled, first of all, which can be found on page 190 of the Message to the Blackman and page 15 of the future Master Farah Muhammad. The subject is, this is the divine problem. He, God himself, will liberate the Negro. Africa is also trying to liberate herself from the same enemy. This subject will be delivered by two dynamic ministers of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabazz. But before we bring on these two ministers, allow us to explain the protocols and procedures you have just experienced. As you were entering our temple service, you was asked to submit to our searching procedures. This searching procedure was introduced to us in 1930 by Allah God, who came in the person of Master Farah Muhammad. And this searching procedure, the reason we perform such searching procedure is for your own safety. There's no need for a weapon, nor will you be attacked. The separation of the men and the women. The men on one side, the women on the other side. This is to prevent distractions between men and women. We asked that you turn your phones or put your phones on vibrate or turn them off to avoid disrupting the service. Last of all, if you have need to use the restroom, please motion to a brother or a sister in the rear area, and he or she will assist you. All praises due to Allah Muhammad. There's a lot of problems that the so-called American Negro, the black man, the black woman, or the so-called African American, as they call themselves nowadays, has to address. Sometimes we are so confused as a people, we feel that we can help other people with their problems. When who has more problems than us? Who is more confused than us? Who is more in jail than us? Who is more in poverty than us? But in our confused state of mind, we want to go around acting like we in shape to go help other people get on their feet. When we have an enemy who has been our enemy for the last 464 years, with his foot on the back of our necks, down in the muck and mire, the mud of civilization. We can't see our way out of this muck and out of this mire because we are a confused people. How do we become confused? Our minds were distorted by an enemy. An enemy who had control over our very lives on this planet, our people, our ancestors, who were tricked into coming into this society, over this world here in the continent of North America. This seed brought here with an idea of a better way of life for themselves. But in actuality, it was hell for themselves. So we are so confused that we want to go out here and try to represent ourselves as being all Americans. We Americans. We present ourselves to the whole world of people, of all the countries and the continents throughout this planet. Get up in front of cameras, get up in front of TVs, cameras, and project ourselves as my country, America. We were not transplanted into this society as being an equal or being an American. The Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us, and he told us that the only Americans are the white man and the white woman. But being confused, out of touch with reality, here we are trying to represent ourselves of a people for a nationality that in their hearts, and if you don't believe me, take turn to watch how many police shoot us down like dogs in the streets. White police officers. They just had another white police officer shoot her sister in her own apartment. Just after they had this white girl, gave her 10 years for killing a black man in his own apartment. Another white officer. Why don't you ever hear of black police officers accidentally shooting white people? They got on a blue uniform just like the white officer. They got a badge on their chest just like the white officer. They got a gun in their holster just like the white officer. So why aren't they shooting white people like white people are shooting us? There is a difference between the two people. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we are not the same people as white people. Our origins are not the same. Our thought process is not the same. When one hates you, he can't help from doing hateful things to you. That's why as soon as they see us, the first thing they want to do is reach for their guns and start shooting. They done shot men, they done shot women, and they have shot children. Is that not true?
Yes, sir.
We're not making this up. It's the reality of what we're dealing with in this day and time. Now, as we were getting up, preparing for this today, a thought came across our mind. When people stand up and began to turn towards the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, sometimes their families, in many cases, their families want to know what's going on. Well, I'm listening to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching now. Don't you know they brainwash people? We've all heard this. All the old followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have heard this, that they are trying to brainwash you. Well, we looked at that word, brainwash. We just gave it a little examination. When you wash something, you are trying to clean up something. So if our brains need to be washed, it's to be washed of impurities. It's to be washed of lies. It's to be washed of tricks. Yes, our brains do need to be washed. We must come into reality. We must come into understanding that we are victims of 464 years of lies and deception. So the next time one of y'all hear somebody say, yeah, them old Muslims trying to brainwash you, say, yeah, my brain do need washing. I got to clean this garbage out of it. These people have put us in a position whereas we don't even know who we are. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad.
Amen.
There is a question that is often asked. What is the New World Nation of Islam? First of all, when you say New World of Islam, most people are of the impression that we are a new group of folks who just showed up. No, sir. No, ma'am. That is not so. We are the original Nation of Islam. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad.
Amen.
If you read the books of our father, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, may peace and mercy of Allah be with him. He always taught us that he was preparing us for Master Farad Muhammad, God in person. And that Master Farad Muhammad would establish the new world out of the followers, the true believers of his own Nation of Islam. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. So the fact is that the new world of Islam is the Nation of Islam. And the Nation of Islam is the New World Nation of Islam. The only difference is that Master Farad Muhammad is now teaching and qualifying the true believers of Elijah, establishing the new world of Islam, those who held fast to his teachings. The new world, just as our Father promised, We are the nation of Islam. We are the children of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It is his light that has prepared us for the meeting with the acceptance of Allah God in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. The holy tribe of Shabazz. Shabazz means perfection. Is the original family and is the original family that came with this part of our planet 66 trillion years ago during the deportation of the moon. The Holy Bible, Book of John, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Yes, in the beginning, God first came to us in words. So in that word is God. In that word is God-like understanding. In that word is the presence of God. As long as we know and we are sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that that God is one who delivered the word to us. Because there are false prophets and there are false gods. So all praise is due to Allah Muhammad. That word is alive and with us in the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. We're not looking anywhere else, the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. We're not looking anywhere else as anything greater than what he has taught us and what he is teaching us. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. Concerning our women, a subject that many people are confused about. Why? Because the woman, the black woman, goes and has always gone everywhere the black man has gone. And what the black man has involved himself in, she has involved herself in. So when we look at our women and we see a reflection of something that some of us might not think is appealing or correct, then look in the mirror, black man, because she is only reflecting you. That's all. She is not independent of us. We are not independent of her. She reflects the light of truth. She reflects guidance. When the brothers started walking around with their pants hanging down some years ago, you started seeing sisters walking around with their pants hanging down some years ago. When the brothers started talking crazy out the side of their neck about, man, I don't care about nothing but me and mine, the sisters started saying, I don't care nothing about me and mine. They go where the black man go. They do what the black man do. We can't look beyond that. We can't place the blame on our woman. She's the best the world, the universe has ever produced. The very best. But because we are living in a dead state of mind, the light that the black man is reflecting on her is not able to illuminate her. So now people are off into the material sense of things. They think that the physical manifestation of the woman, showing her body parts to the universe, to everybody, is the way to show off her beauty. No. Her beauty is for her husband. Her beauty is for her to be in the family amongst her husband, not to be out here displayed for the whole world. And now they compete to see who can show the most, who can be the most degrading. But if the black man was to stand on his own 2 feet, represent truth, freedom, justice, and equality, and then go to that sister and say, sister, I'm standing on my 2 feet. Are you ready to stand on yours? She will follow us. And if she won't, find one that will. They are there. They are our people. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. In 1555, when the black man was captured and forced into servitude slavery, the queen mother of the planet Earth was kidnapped and forced into shackles and chains and sold into slavery. She is the best, the strongest, the most faithful woman on the planet. She is our goddess and the field in which we plant and cultivate the future gods and goddesses. She is our helpmate and our companion. We must never beat them, brothers. We must never beat them. Treat them gentle and raise them up and put them on a pedestal, where they belong. She is the most important part of our lives. And next to God, we must love, honor, respect, and protect her. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. These keys are the only things that will wake our people up. The key to understanding the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad is to know that he says what he means and he means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he say we must obey. It's nation time. What time is it?
Nation time.
What time is it?
Nation time.
What time is it?
Nation time.
We are all gods and children of our father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The difference between the old world nation of Islam and the new world nation of Islam is that the new world teaches the presence of Allah in the person of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the last God of the old world, the first God of the new world hereafter. The old world nation teaches that Elijah is the messenger or apostle, and that God of 1930, Master Farah Muhammad, will return one day. Ali Mahdi Muhammad is the supreme authority over the old world nation of Islam and the new world nation of Islam by the order of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Allah, February 26, 1960. We are all followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the field supreme minister. Now, when we say whose nation is the new world nation of Islam, it's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's nation. Concerning Master Farah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I was expecting him. They would never acquaint the so-called Negroes with him. Nor will they ever tell you anything of good that is in your favor. Even if all of the enemy nations were closing in on them, they would not tell you until you saw them. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, today, the world is more opposed to Islam than ever in a manner of speaking. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. For the Islamic world is having confusion over the very principles they have been teaching. They have gone so far off the path themselves that they cannot correct or establish a return start for the future of Islam. They must admit that the Holy Quran prophesies of the coming of Allah God and the days of Allah God and what he can do. The Holy Quran also prophesies that the messenger and Allah God will be as one person together, and that the messenger will teach and train his own ministers in that day. Our Father said, the only thing that is unforgivable is turning your back on Allah after the knowledge has come to you. Our father, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, said, I saw this brother coming up in the Bible, closest between Allah and myself. I will show it to you, brother minister, sometime when we get more time, but not now. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that we shouldn't pray to a dead Jesus. He can't hear our prayers. So why does the New World Nation of Islam pray to a dead Elijah? From Ali Mahdi Muhammad. Elijah is not dead in the New World. The Holy Quran says, speak not of them as dead. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us why I teach separation. Everywhere you go now, up and down the East Coast, around the West Coast, around the border of Canada and America, all down through her center, and you will find little Elijahs. So I'm happy, and I tell the old devil, if you kill me now, thanks to Allah, I have left enough seeds that you will have a hell of a time trying to destroy. If you accept the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as an apostle, you get an apostle's award. If you accept him as a prophet, you get a prophet's reward. If you accept him as a messenger, you get a messenger's reward. But if you accept Elijah as Almighty God Allah, you get a God's reward. All praises due to Allah Muhammad. We are a nation within a nation of approximately 50 million people, plus approximately 6 million Indians who are our brothers and original people. We must have some land that we can call our own. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time all the time. The history is already written in 25,000 year cycles. Our father, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, said, before the kingdom can come in, there must be a falling away first. And during the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day under the guidance of the great Mahdi will come, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is being raised here in the wilderness of North America by the honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. So now, without further delay, we'd like to bring on our first speaker, a good brother, a hard-working brother. Your brother and mine, Brother Minister Fahim Ali. Brother Minister Fahim Ali. Peace, peace. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Let's give that brother another round of applause. Looking out into the faces of my brothers and sisters, I see the great work that has been done by the Field Supreme Minister. We can't thank him enough for this great service that he has provided for our people here in the wilderness of North America. This is a great service. To look out into the faces of beautiful black women dedicated to serving Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. That is some great work that he has done. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, in the person of our Father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him forever. And we thank Master Farad Muhammad, who came in the person of Allah in the year of 1930. He is the manifestation of Almighty God Allah. We will remember him and praise him forever. And we will honor him by naming our children after him for at least 1,000 years. And we thank our Father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, for raising the Field Supreme Minister of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabazz, Ali Mahdi Muhammad. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
As again, we can't thank Allah Muhammad enough for the great work that he has done. And he has given us a key that we might pass on so that our people might understand the work that is being done in their favor and for them. And that key is the key to understanding the teachings of the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad is to know that he says what he means and he means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he say we must obey. The difference between the old world nation of Islam and the new world nation of Islam is that the new world nation of Islam teaches the presence of Allah in the person of the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, the last God of the old world and the first God of the new world hereafter. The old world nation of Islam teaches that Elijah is the messenger or apostle and that the God of 1930, Master Farad Muhammad, will return someday. Ali Mahdi is the supreme authority over the old world nation of Islam and the new world nation of Islam by the order of the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, Allah, February 26, 1960. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time, on time, all the time. The history is already written in 25,000 year cycles. Our father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, said, before the kingdom can come, there must be a falling away first. During the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day will, under the guidance of the great Mahdi, will come. And he will turn the hearts of the children back to our father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is raised by the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad here in the wilderness of North America. Peace, peace.
Peace,
How does
peace.
everyone feel again?
Fine, sir.
That is a great thing, to be feeling fine in this day and time. Our subject, as Brother Minister has already informed you, is taken from Message to the Blackman, page 190. It is also found the material or the subject that we are going to be discussing today is in the Future Master Farad Muhammad, page 15. And that is, this is a divine problem that God himself will liberate the Negro. Africa is trying to liberate herself from this same enemy. That is something. You know, when you look at the world today and we see out the condition of our people, we recognize that this has got to be a major undertaking because our people are deaf, dumb, and blind. Why, for instance, the brother minister has already mentioned that a case in Texas where a white female officer goes into a black man's apartment, kills him, and then says that she thought she was in her own apartment and that he was an intruder. The ironic thing is that when she was placed on trial, after she had been convicted, that the victim's brother came and gave her a hug in the courtroom and said he forgave her. To add insult to injury, the judge came off the bench in her robe, a black woman, and gave this same murderer, convicted murderer, a hug. This is insanity. You mean to tell me that we are going to lavish love and praise on the murderers of our own people? We don't raise a voice. And to further highlight my point, there was a brother who lived in this same apartment complex who came to court and testified what he had heard. He had made it possible for this woman to be found guilty based on his testimony. A short time later, less than a week, this same brother who came to court to help this murder victim's brother's family get justice was killed himself. He was shot in the mouth. Where is the outcry about this murder? Why didn't the victim's brother come and console this man's family? Because he certainly came to give him some aid. And what about the judge? Did anyone hear a peep out of her? This man came in her courtroom and helped her convict a guilty person, and yet she says nothing about his murder, which could have been tied to his testimony. This is a shame. That is why it takes God himself to come and put an end to this here injustice, because we can't do it ourselves, not on our own. Our people are too deaf, dumb, and blind. They love the devil because the devil gives them nothing. This is what he has been giving us for the past 400 years, and it's apparent that most of our people love this treatment. They must think that hate is love and love is hate, because they hate the very people who will help bring justice to them. But they love the man who gives them the injustice and insults them with the insults that he insults us with by killing our people in front of us and then laughing because we are powerless to do anything about it. Yes, that's a shame. Yes, sir, we do need God to help us from this here tragic situation. We need someone who will stand up in our defense, show us the way out of this hell, because this is hell. How could this be heaven when we are living with our 400-year-old enemies? They didn't bring us over here to give us heaven. They promised that we would find it, but have we found it? All we have found is misery, slavery, suffering, and death under this here merciless people. And even today, we still find this same brutality practiced by the children of the ones who enslaved our foreparents. And they haven't changed. It's the same murderous element that existed then exists now. And they are showing us their hatred for us every day. That is a shame that we will be so in love and so enamored by this here wicked beast. Because that's what the scripture calls them. Because their actions are like that of a wild beast when it comes to the American so-called Negro. When we say that Allah is going to liberate the so-called Negro, that is true. But let us take another look at Muslims around the world and see what some of them are going through. In China, if a person is a Muslim, do you know that they are being persecuted? And right now today, that many of the young Muslims in China are being taken to concentration camps. The older ones are being forced to have a member of the Chinese government or someone who represents that government to live in their house as a family member. They have no choice. The government is forcing that upon them. So they are also in need of Allah's help. Yes, sir. Because when Allah helps the so-called Negro, he is going to help Muslims all around the world. Why? Because all Muslims bear witness that there is no God but Allah. And if you bear witness that there is no God but Allah, then Allah is obligated to help you in your situation. We have a blessing, we have a great blessing because we know God by name. We don't just say, oh yeah, Allah. We know he is in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Just as the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us he would be. He is here, and the proof that he is here is that we are standing here representing that one who is here. Brothers, and sisters, bear witness that this is he who we are representing, that one whom the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad prepared for us. There is also some things that I would like to read or share with you that the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad said in regards to our subject. He said, and this is found in Message to the Black Man, also on page 90. He said, these prophecies concerning the resurrection and freedom of the so-called American Negro cannot be cast aside as false, especially today, for you can see the fulfillment. The so-called Negro must be determined or delivered, by the God only. He can only be delivered by God. We can't, as I said, we can't do this ourselves. It's a monumental task. But just as the scripture promised, God is here, he is here. And he came to fulfill that which he predicted or he promised he would do 4,000 years ago. See, God don't forget. It can be 1,000 years. It can be 100,000 years. When he tell you that he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad said that Allah was going to free the so-called Negro. And the proof that he is already on the scene doing that which he was prophesied to do or predicted he would do, he is doing. See, the first thing he liberates is our thinking. So we are no longer bound by the thoughts that we previously had in the old world or in the dead world. We recognize that we are free from the fear that held us bondage under the devil's servitude. We no longer fear the devil. That fear has been taken out of us. Just like the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad said, he said, Allah will take that fear out of you. And we bear witness that even though the devil is he's supposed to be the baddest people on the planet, and who can make war with the beast? Everybody that went up against these devils, they have been victimized, they have been crushed, they have been slaughtered. Most times. But their power has been broken. The proof that has been broken is that these little nations that they went into, like Vietnam, like Korea, they're not the power that they once were. The nations that they went into, Muslim nations in the East, Iraq, Syria, Libya, they're coming out of that. Afghanistan, as meager weapons as those Muslims have over there, they are fighting the devil almost to a standstill. And these devils have tanks, they have planes, they have bombs, they have all this. And all the Muslims have is their belief in Allah. They say, what? Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. And so we don't fear these little white devils running around here in their tanks with their guns and their machines. Come on, Goliath. We'll fight you. That is what they're saying. We're saying, yes, Allah has this battle. He's going to take it to the devil in his time. And as the key says, everything is in time, on time, all the time. So when Allah starts putting his foot in the devil's behind, you know that it's on time. But we see it today happening. The storms, the plagues, the confusion. Look, they got a government that's in place that they're so divided and against each other, they can't even see how to run the country anymore. They got a president, I ain't giving you nothing. And the Congress is like, oh, we're going to subpoena these things. He said, well, you can do whatever you want. And then he got a lawyer that's just as crooked as he is. He's so crooked that he's walking sideways smiling. You can look at the little evil devil's smile on his face like, oh, yeah, we crooked, but you can't prove it. And even if you do, we're not going to do anything anyway. What y'all going to do, impeach him? And then the next one will step up and he'll take the same position that this one took. So what y'all got? We still gonna keep our foot on y'all. Oh, is that what you think? Well, we say, we shall see, because the God of our fathers, the God that was predicted, is here today. And he has taken this job on himself. We're not afraid that this is not going to happen. In fact, we are quite certain that Allah is going to free the so-called Negroes from this evil beast that they have been under for the last 454 years. It's time. It's time that we get up and celebrate. Why should we celebrate? Because the God is here, and he is here to answer our prayer. He is here to deliver us. He is here to take the tail and make him the head. He is here to take what was on the bottom and put him on top. What? You mean to tell me he gonna take these little Negroes that can't even think of how to get together and stand together, he gonna put them on top? Look how divided we are. He likes it like that because that shows that he has power over all things. And that he can take a divided people and bring them together and make a mighty force, make a mighty nation out of people whom the world had considered as nothing. Yes, sir. That is what the God is here to do today. And we are honored to be a servant of this God. We thank Allah Muhammad much for holding on to us, because he could have let us go at any time. Yeah, at any time. That is the God, that is the mercy that our God has for his people. He can take a sinner like myself, clean him up, polish him up, and send him out there and say, okay, now it's your turn. Yes, sir. And we go out there and we try to do the best we can in representing the God that gave us a chance to be somebody. I just got to say one thing like Jesse Jackson said. Jesse Jackson, and I'm not a fan of Jesse Jackson. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely not a fan of old Jesse. But he did say this. He said, say I am somebody. I am somebody. Why am I somebody? Because Allah made me who I am. Praise be to Allah. We want to bring back on this brother, our master of ceremony, but we would like for you to bear in mind that we have a man coming behind us that's going to take you so deep into it that you'll forget your problems for the day. Praise be to Allah. May Allah Muhammad bless us all. Peace, peace.
Keep them hands going, y'all. The truth is perfectly free, but when it's got a lot of spirit behind it, it'll make you feel it. And that brother minister just made us, I know he made me feel something. But this truth is like no other truth the universe has ever known. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. But at this time, we're going to do some explanation into the images that we have up here on stage behind us, because that is the foundational images that the New World Nation of Islam stands upon. First of all, this is Master Farad Muhammad. Now, there are some who may not know the truth or the reality of Master Farad Muhammad. He came to the shores of North America in 1930. He originally came to the shores of America about 20 years before that, but he was not able to discern exactly who the people he was looking for at that time. So he had to do some more searching. But in 1930, he came in divine understanding that the people that he was looking for were the so-called American Negroes, the black man and the black woman here in the hells of North America. He came by himself. He didn't come with bodyguards. He didn't come riding in a tank. He wasn't in a jet fighter. They didn't even have jets back then. There's some who say he landed off of the mother plane. But we're not going into that at this time. He is a man who had a mission. A mission to find a man who had a mission himself. He was a specially prepared man. Master Farad Muhammad was specially prepared to deliver a message to specially prepared people. People who have been lost in the wilderness for 400 years. Treated worse than dogs in the street with no home to call their own. But he had a mission, and he never failed in pursuing his mission, which is to find his uncle. Who is his uncle? An uncle is a senior in your family tree. The uncle doesn't come under the nephew. The uncle doesn't come under the niece. The uncle is a senior. He was on this planet first. He's there as a senior. So when he came to America in 1930, he came looking for his uncle. His uncle was one who did not know the knowledge of himself. Who was his uncle? The Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, one day, when he was around, I believe he was around 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old, he was outside or away from his house in the woods playing, because he was from Crawfordsville, Georgia. So he was out there in the woods and stuff. And he happened upon a group of white men, human beings, who were lynching a black man. And Elijah knew the man that they were lynching. He was hiding in the bushes so that he couldn't be seen, because they probably would have lynched him as well. But he seen the murderous nature of his and our enemy. So at that time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that at that time, he asked God, he said, God, if you give me the power to help save my people from this enemy, I will serve you forever. He committed himself to that. Even before he knew he was going to be the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, he knew what his role was. God inspired. God said, and God protected him. God did not allow the enemy to touch a hair on his head. Back in the 1930s, when white people would kill a black man for looking sideways at a white woman or at them. Back then, black people walked around with their heads down to the ground. They couldn't even look a white man or a white woman in the eye for fear of ending up on a lyncher's tree. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. And talking about a lyncher's tree, we have a board behind us, which is called the Actual Facts Board. And on that board, you see a black man, two of them, two black men, hanging from a lyncher's rope. And you see a bunch of smiling, grinning, tobacco-chewing white boys. And there's women there, and there's a woman out front. These are not people that are your friend. They would bring their own children to see a lynching. to see a man or a woman even hanging from a rope and then set a slow burning fire up under their feet, burning them slowly to increase the pain, to increase the suffering, that everyone would know. And they took pictures. Now, I don't know nowadays if they still proud of those pictures, but those pictures are a history of who they are. This board, the actual facts board, was brought to the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, or the revelation was brought to him because back in 1942, at the beginning of World War II, the Caucasians had made it a proclamation that no public meeting, and Honorable Elijah Muhammad was having public meetings at that time, that no public meeting could be held without the American flag being prominently shown. So our father, in his wisdom, he came up with the actual facts board. He put the American flag on there, but he also put the truth of the American flag on there. Under the American flag, you see Christianity. Under Christianity, you see the cross. And then under the cross is slavery, suffering, and death. Islam is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam. When you see the chain that produced, and you study those who've been up under that flag, and how we have suffered, and how we have been enslaved, and how we have become nothing in the eyes of the universe because of them, and that Christianity and that flag, you understand why our father put those words on there. But then there's the Islamic flag. This flag right here, which means freedom, justice, equality, and independence for all Black people throughout this planet. Even the ones who don't know who they are at this time. This is their flag. This is our flag. Freedom, justice, and equality. Then there's this war. And those of you, and we suggest, if you don't look at the news, begin to check out the news, please. Ali Mahdi Muhammad taught us that to be current is to be divine. So current events keep you up on what's happening in this world. The enemy, as Brother Minister Fahim mentioned in his elegant presentation, that enemy is not who he was years and years and years ago. He is losing power because he is now out of season. He's not that same bad old white man he used to be. That countries will tremble when they America don't like what you're doing. Countries, whole countries, and everybody in the countries will tremble. Oh, we don't want to get that white man mad. Just like when the slaves, back in the slavery time, when we were on their slave plantations. Oh, master, ooh, don't do that. Master gonna get mad. Master gonna get mad. That old white man had power. He was given that authority. But it ain't like that no more. You got kids running around the street who pick up a rock and bust a cop right upside the head. They ain't scared of white people no more because that divine time for them to rule and dominate us has passed. So who will win the war Armageddon? It's sure not going to be that American flag. And I don't know if y'all know it, but every war they've been in since the Vietnam War, they lost. And that was the first official on-record war they ever lost. And now they're getting ready to come out of Afghanistan. That means a loss. They are losing. We must come to our own. All praises are due to Allah Muhammad. So with that, at this time, we have a speaker to come before you. Your brother and mine, the spokesman for the New World Nation of Islam, Brother Mumin Allah. Peace, peace.
Peace.
Peace, peace.
Peace.
How's everyone this afternoon?
Fine, sir.
Blessed to be alive. They're killing us wholesale. We're alive. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, in the person of our Father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him forever. And we thank Master God Muhammad, who came in the person of Allah in the year of 1930. He is the manifestation of Almighty God Allah. We will remember him and praise him forever. And we will honor him by naming our children after him for at least 1,000 years. And we thank our Father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, for raising the Field Supreme Minister of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabazz, Ali Mahdi Muhammad. As I greet you in our nation's greetings of peace to you in this world and peace to you in the new world hereafter. Peace, peace.
Peace.
The key to understanding the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is to know that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says what he means and means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he say we must obey. The difference between the old world nation of Islam and the new world nation of Islam is that the new world nation of Islam teaches the presence of Almighty God Allah in the person of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, last God of the old world and first God of the new world hereafter. The old world nation of Islam teaches that Elijah is the messenger or the apostle, and that the God of 1930, Master Farad Muhammad, will return someday. Ali Mahdi Muhammad is the supreme authority over the old world nation of Islam and the new world nation of Islam by the order of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Allah, February 26, 1960. Therefore, nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time, all the time. The history is already written in 25,000 year cycles. Our Father, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, said, before the kingdom can come, there must be a falling away first. And during the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will, and he has, knock 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day under the guidance of the great Mahdi will come, and it has, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our beloved spiritual father, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is raised here in the wilderness of North America by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Again, how my beloved black brothers and sisters.
Fine, sir.
We have a subject before us again from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You will always have a subject before us from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Whenever you come to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's house, in his nation, his civilization, his domain. And what we have before us is from, as the brother stated, the future Master Farad Muhammad. And the root source is from Message to the Blackman, page 190, wherein the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that this is the divine problem. God himself will liberate the so-called Negro. Then he goes on to say Africa is trying to liberate herself from the same enemy. Look at that. This is the divine problem. What do you mean divine? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, and our Savior has arrived on page 33, that it is definitions that gives us understanding. So what is divine? Divine means to be on time, in time, all the time. That's God. He's the only one that is eternally consistent in that way. Everything he says and does is in time, is on time, all the time. And it is surrounded and founded by justice and righteousness. That's God. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, this is the divine problem. God himself will liberate the Negro. So now if he will liberate the Negro, let's see, or let's look into this, what he will do if he's going to liberate the Negro. This is the first thing that we want to do. In the preceding paragraphs of this same page, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the liberation, the salvation of the so-called Negro, it cannot be discarded as false, especially today when we see the fulfillment of it. He said that the so-called Negro must be liberated by God and God only, and that he uses a messenger in that day and time. And that messenger is symbolically called the Lamb of God. And he says that in the resurrection, the so-called Negro spiritually is liberated in this way. So now let's look at this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in a booklet entitled Yaqub, the Father of Mankind, on page 105. He says, God created two of everything, even down to man. So now there's a duality. Let's look at this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, history is best qualified to reward all research. So what we want to do is look at our subject matter this afternoon through two men, the history of two men, both with the same name. One is divine, the other is a devil. Both called Abraham. You have Prophet Abraham and you have Abraham Lincoln. This is our subject. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this is the divine problem. God himself will liberate the Negro. Well, let's see how God liberates the Negro. And we're looking at it through two men's history, Prophet Abraham and Abraham Lincoln. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad points out to us. So now let's look at this. Prophet Abraham. Prophet Abraham is told in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 and 14. God says to Abraham, your people. Now, well, first, let's qualify something. Black folks are Abraham's seed, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
Or is it them white Jews?
No, sir.
You sure about that?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's not them white folks call themselves Jews that stole our birthright. Proof of that is they condemn their own selves as not being Abraham's seed. In John chapter 8, verse 31 through 33, when Jesus said, the truth shall make you free, what did those devils say? What do you mean the truth will make us free? We have not been in bondage to no man, so they don't need no liberating or any salvation. Is that right?
Yes,
It is us. All right, back to Genesis 15, 13, 14. God tells Abraham, Abraham, we don't know if he said it like that, but it's good news and bad news. Good news is your people gonna have heaven. The bad news is they have to go to hell first. They have to be taken to a strange land by a strange people and afflicted for 400 years. But after that, I'm going to judge that people and bring your people out with great substance. That's God liberating us, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and our Savior has arrived on page 18. He said, the time has arrived that Allah must fulfill his promise to Abraham. And he says Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 and 14 as the determining factor and how to look at this liberation and what people fits this bill. He said, Allah must liberate Abraham's seed, even though Israel was a disbelieving people in Moses and Jehovah. That's another way of saying Allah Muhammad. Now, the majority of the black people in America, they believe in Allah Muhammad, right? Of course not. They said there was a disbelieving people in Moses and Jehovah. So a small number, a minority of that number, a handful, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, believe. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad went on to say that Allah could not lie to his prophet Abraham, though Israel was a rebellious people. If we said that the black man was God to the majority of our people right now, at high noon on Sunday, what would they say? You crazy. He's God, pointing to a white Hell's Angel looking Jesus. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
This is a divine problem. God will liberate the so-called Negro. This is what we're trying to get after and show the circumstances under which God has to liberate a people. So we take away all of the fantasies, all of the myths, all of the misconceptions, all of the foolish ideas that we have been taught about God liberating his people. And it don't include white, because he's not right. So here, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is pointing out to us and showing us that which we need to know concerning the liberation of his people. So now, here we see and understand that the white man is not God's people, and it is the so-called Negro that God comes to liberate. So now, what does that leave us with? It leaves us with the first step towards liberation, the first step towards independence. What is that? There is a method to everything. There's a method to doing nothing. If you don't have knowledge of nothingness, you don't even know if you're doing that right. So here we are talking about the divine problem, and God himself will liberate the so-called Negro. How we know we're on the right track? How we know we're doing what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we must do in order to know we're under the right God to liberate us. So now here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us what to expect as the first step in God liberating you and I. He says in the Flag of Islam, a little booklet, but it's divinely packed. On pages 1 and 2, he said, Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad came on the scene. And he said he came on the scene and he has power over the universe. And he said the first thing that he did was declare us as a nation, which is coincide with the Bible's teachings, that when he came, he would make a nation out of us. And he declared us as a nation for the first time. Then he said, on top of this, he gave us a flag to represent us as being an independent people. He said he gave us a flag that represented the universe. So therefore, we will call the lost found nation of Islam in the wilderness of North America. He said this is what we will call by him recognizing us, calling us a nation, and giving us a flag. He said all states and countries have flags designed by themselves to represent themselves as being an independent people. And he said, God said that we are an independent nation, and our flag is, because we are such, is called the flag of Islam. Do we have a flag?
Yes, sir.
Is it called the flag of Islam?
Yes, sir.
Does it spiritually and secularly represent freedom, justice, and equality?
Yes, sir.
Which is representative of that which all people seek, peace? Well then, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not lying. He told the truth. So now, we have a flag. We are declared as a nation. We free, right? We just checking, because you know sometimes we get confused. So now here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us the first step. But now we can show and or see and show that we have a God that is guiding us and has given us the greatest flag in the universe. We can see that just through our flag, our national. There's a process in sociology. It's a process that represents the study of and the understanding of standards or flags. They call it vexillology. It is the study of flags, the history behind flags. What represents that flag as being what it say it is. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us a clear insight into our history under this flag. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said February 9th, 1936, in a Muhammad Speaks article, a warning of Allah. And in this particular article, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, referring to Allah, he said, not only did he give us names, but he gave us a flag that represents the universe, that represents the black man as being the owner and creator of everything in the universe, and it exposed the white man as being the enemy of freedom, justice, and equality, of which the flag of Islam represents. He said it also identified the white man as being the deceiver and the opposer of the nations of the earth for 6,000 years. It also represented the end of his time as a ruler. That's what he said. He said that when the devil had locked up Master Farad Muhammad. He said, when the Savior was giving us our flag, this one, he said that the devil said to Master Farad Muhammad, we had never seen the star that close to the crescent. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, our Savior said that it was only like this once. And one of the scientists of Islam photographed it. That's why we have it today. Now listen to this. Then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, bless his holy name. Talking about Master Farad Muhammad. He said, in the month of April that same year, or the previous year, 1935, he said, Allah took the planet Venus and the moon and formed in the sky this very representation of the star that close to the crescent in its first quarter. He said the devil was amazed over this mighty work. He said, but prior to that, he said that Allah caused a shadow to go over half of the moon. He said, and it had hardly itself been a half moon itself, but he caused a shadow to go over half of it. He said, this is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Holy Quran, chapter 75, verse 8, that when the moon is covered, that is a sign of the end of the opposition of a people who oppose Islam and the teaching of Islam. That's what he said. Remember, this is a divine problem, and God himself will liberate the Negro. This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is giving us and teaching us about what we have to do. To show you how wise Allah is in giving us this type of national, Allah identifies our wretched and ungodly condition and the solution to the said condition in just this one part of the symbolic elements of our flag, just using the moon. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in an interview in 1972, he was asked a question. He said, dear Holy Apostle, according to your teachings, the moon, as we have it in our flag, it represents the original black man. Is that right, sir? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, well, no, it doesn't represent the black man as you represent him, not as you see it. He said, but it represents a sign of the black man here in North America who was deaf, dumb, and blind and without the knowledge of self, but was once in the knowledge of self. Then he was asked, well, what do the other 3/4 of the moon represent? He said they represent stages in our rise into the knowledge of self. This is what God gave us. He comes to liberate us. Oh, yeah. I know you didn't think that God was going to wave his magic wand and we was going to be independent, right? Didn't the Honorable Elijah Muhammad say, give you nothing, get it yourself? Didn't he say, up you mighty nation, accomplish what you will? Didn't he say that? God is for real. Did anybody teach a class for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Did anybody raise fruit for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Did anybody show the Honorable Elijah Muhammad how to build a nation? He did it with his life work. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, then we the children of him. And he left us with everything. We don't need nothing because he didn't miss nothing. So this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us about that. So now, if this is what's before us and God is liberating us, what's the next step in our being liberated by God? Simple. Qualifications. Does that sound right?
Yes, sir.
It is. Didn't we just say you can't even do nothing without knowledge?
Yes, sir.
The book of knowledge says that knowledge is a prerequisite to work. Everything that everyone is paid for is what? Based on what they know and how to apply, transfer that knowledge into skill sets. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's the same with God guiding us to liberate us into independence. So qualification is the next step in God liberating us, which is the divine problem. What would you rather be, a consumer or a provider? What would you rather be, a retailer or a manufacturer? No one wants to be in a dependent position. They want to be independent. Because when you're dependent, you're subject to whatever the independent feels like doing to you. And if they're not God, they're eventually going to do you wrong. So now, what's before us now in God liberating us is qualifications. Not our definition, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in The Fall of America on page 183, he said, the future of the black man is so beautiful, it's almost incomprehensible. He said, the greatest thing that stands before us now is qualification and readiness. He said, let us get qualified to master the house that God has given us. Then he said, if someone robs us of the mastery of the house, I feel sorry for us. He said, have patience, black brother and black sister, to receive the kingdom that God has given you and me. We will receive it. Have patience to receive it. Then he went on to say, in order to get the house, which is the nation, independence, in order to get the house into our service, he said it is like a baby being born from his mother. He said, just as the baby has to wait to mature in that which he is in to be born, so the black man must mature to be born into a new world that he has to build himself. And then he says in the last sentence, because this is the chapter 2, these are the days of trouble. This is when God comes to liberate us in the days of trouble. Are these troubling days today? Or are we in the land of milk and honey? I just want to check again, because, you know, sometimes we digress. So now the Honorable Elijah Muhammad re-emphasizes this same point of qualification and readiness under his God in Theology of Time on page 46. Listen to this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, now, I want those of you who are thinking to think over this. He said, if you are to rule after others have ruled and you have not been ruling, then those who have been ruling can easily cheat you out of the freedom to rule. He said, so therefore, this is why we don't let them in. He said, until we are sure that you have mastered what you are being taught. He said, we don't allow foreigners. This is for the little baby that is being born, the little black baby. Aren't we an infant nation?
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, it's not like we have a critical national infrastructure right now, and we have a great, ambitious, hundreds of billions of dollars projects. You know, I mean, we're happy to get a meal right now. You see, this is the state of being, qualification. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, once the nation got to a certain level of growth and development, he said, we can't put the job over now without the professional class. That's right. Those with the abilities. You see, it's not about religion. It's about self-help of blackness. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if you want to help uplift the black man, then you and I should get together and have a spiritual feast to the end of finding justice for the black man. In other words, we must get in and fit in where we can among one another, find a common ground, and do that which we need to do for self, build independence like any other people with sense. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. He worked with many people who weren't religious, but they were about his self-help program. They were into helping black. So this is what God comes to do, to solve the divine problem and liberate the black man. This is what's before us. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now that was a divine liberation. That is what was promised to Abraham, Prophet Abraham. Now let's look at Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Fall of America on page 7 and 8, he said, you must be freed. He said, you say you are free. Abraham Lincoln freed me. He said, I am not talking about that kind of freedom. He said, I'm talking about the freedom that makes you independent. He said, the freedom that Abraham Lincoln gave you is not freedom. He said, the freedom that he gave you was only the type of freedom that made you think that you were free. He said, Abraham Lincoln did not intend to make you free. He only used that as a weapon to bring his brother in line because they didn't want two United States and they didn't want two presidents. He said they did not want a government where they had two. So he used that as a weapon, the Civil War, to bring his brother in line. He said, you were lucky to get free at that time, or you probably will still be in servitude and slavery today. He said, you love Abraham Lincoln. He said, Abraham Lincoln didn't love you, nor was he your friend any more than George Washington. Now understand and realize this. In a book by Lerone Bennett Jr. called Forced into Glory, nearly 700 pages. It's called Forced into Glory, Abraham Lincoln's White Dream. And in there, it speaks about Abraham Lincoln's idea of emancipation. He wanted emancipation to be brought about slowly. He wanted emancipation to stretch over a whole century. So that means in 1863, when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation Act, or enforced it January 1st, this didn't free a slave, except for those that he didn't have no authority over. He said he wanted it to stretch for a century. That is from 1863 to 1963, if he had his way. And not only that, soon as the freedom came about, he wanted to colonize us someplace else. He didn't want us here. In that same book, on page 112, Forced into Glory, listen to what Abraham Lincoln said. He said, history is not history unless it is the truth. That's what he said. History is not history unless it is the truth. Well, let's hear the truth about black folks according to Abraham Lincoln. Listen to what he said. This same devil said in Africa's Gift to America by J.A. Rogers. He says on page 5, during the debates between himself and Senator Stephen Douglas in 1858, he said, I am not, nor have I ever been in favor of having social equality or political equality between black and white. He said, I have not, nor have I ever been in favor of making Negroes jurors, voters, or qualifying for political office. He said, even though we have to live together, there is a physical difference between the two races that prevent us from living together in equality and peace. Therefore, we must have the position of superior and inferior. And I myself are in favor of allotting that superiority to the white race. Sound like Abraham Lincoln loved us? Sound like his intentions was to free us so we could go to the promised land? But as they say, but wait, there's more. It says in that same book, Africa's Gift to America, page 141, in there, it shows how Congress, to satisfy the white businessmen, because they thought that they was going to free the slaves, Congress, they assured the business people that they did not go to war to free the slaves, but to maintain the Constitution. And Lincoln, in his first inaugural speech in 1861, stated this. He said, I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with slavery where it exists. He said, I believe that it is unlawful for me to interfere with slavery. He said, I do not intend to interfere with it, and I have no inclination to interfere with it where it stands. He said, the Constitution maintains this. Sound like Lincoln loved us, wanted to free us? Lincoln said in September 13th, 1862, in a reply to the church committee, he said, the way he said, he pointed out that slavery was not something that he was inclined to interfere with. He said that slavery was something that was maintained by the Constitution. That's what he said. That's what he said. But now here's the kicker. He said in December of the same year, December 1st, 1862, he said, the liberation of slaves is tantamount to the destruction of property. He said, property that is acquired by descent or purchase, but property just the same. Did you hear humanity anywhere in that statement? Did you hear mercy or moral stability or moral stance? All you heard was a transaction. He believed that liberation of slaves was the destruction of property, whether by descent. Now you see why the scriptures say the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children by descent, handed down. Why is America the richest nation, most powerful nation on the planet? 310 years without our foreparents having a payday. How rich would we be if we took white folks and said, all right, for 310 years, everything you got is mine, including your intellectual ability and your academic know-how is ours. How rich would we be? W.E.B. Du Bois wrote a book in 1915 entitled The Negro. He said at the time that the Declaration of Independence declared that all men are created equal and they all have certain unalienable rights, of which life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is one. At that very utterance, as they say, there were 500,000 of our foreparents enslaved. Does it sound like they was talking about we was created equal? Of course not. So it was never an intention for us to be free. And this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is pointing out, that the solution to our problem is divine. We have to be freed by God, because if we depend on these devils, they got new plans to put us back into slavery, 21st century style. Yes, they do. They do. In that same book, From Prison to Power, it pointed out that mental enslavement is invisible violence. Think about that. You got our people thinking they're free and they're being bombarded mentally with violent acts on a daily basis until they enact them on themselves. This is what we're up against in God liberating the people. We just wanted to give it to you plain. But now the last part that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad points out to us is that Africa is trying to liberate herself from the same enemies. That's what he said. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in Theology of Time on pages 111 and 112. He said that you have some great scholars and scientists in Africa. He said, but they cannot teach us because what they have is from their white teachers. He said, I'm not here to criticize. They retain some of their ancient knowledge. He said, but what they were taught was taught to them by white people. He said they must have the new wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that will liberate the black man all over the earth. And he said, that is with me here. That's what he said. He said, I love you. He said, and I want to shake hands with you all around the earth. He said, because you are my brother. He said, but you can't teach me with that which the Dutch and the English and all those other slave-making rascals have taught you. He said, because that has enslaved you just like it has enslaved us over here. That's what he said. And Africa is trying to liberate themselves. That's what he said. And it's true. They're trying to liberate themselves. So now let's look into this. If they're trying to liberate themselves, how did they get into the bind that they're in? We know how we got into ours, but how did they get into theirs? So we don't fall into the same snare or net. So now Africa is trying to liberate herself from the same enemy. What enemy is that? If you ask the Indonesian, what do they think about the Dutch? If you ask the Kenyans, what do they think about the British? If you ask the Algerians what they think about the French, we can't say it because this is a holy place what they think about it. But it will be unanimous agreement that they are classified at the very least as enemies. So what does the oppressed have in common? They're all people of color. Just as we have over here, if you ask us what you think of the American white man. So now all of the oppressors have something in common too. They're all white. Is that right?
Yes,
They're
sir.
all European. They're all Western. They're all, as they call, Occidental. They're all, as we call them, devils. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well then now Africa's trying to liberate herself from such people. So how did they get into this? Simple. In a book called New Dimensions in African History, where Dr. Yosef Ben Jochannan and Dr. John Henry Clark are fielding questions. And they are speaking about how our people got into the bind in our homeland. There was a devil, notorious devil, wicked devil, Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria, think about this. In Africa right now, one of the largest lakes in our homeland is called what? Queen Victoria.
Yes, sir.
How did that happen? Her official historian was called Edward Herzlitt. He wrote a 2-volume set called The Map of Africa by Treaty. Listen to this. You know this is not going to end well for us, right? The Map of Africa by Treaty, and the white man's writing it for us. In there, these two renowned scholars and scientists of history, they point out how all of these treaties that supposedly were granted by our people to all of the European nations that had land or colonies in our homeland, it came about by civilized mutual cooperation and transactional operations. But here's the point to show you that something's wrong. All of these treaties was signed by our people in English. There was no such thing as English language then, the way it was signed off. And one of the examples they use is of a brother named Azinga, who was the emperor of Mani Congo, today called Democratic Republic of Congo. This is the proof that these devils stole the land from us. Then on top of this, when they saw our people getting wise, they had what? They had the Berlin Conference, 1884 to 1886, hosted by Otto von Bismarck and Kaiser Wilhelm. And remember what our father said about the Germans, second worst devils on the planet. It was England, 12 other European powers in the United States. Now listen to this. The United States said, no, we weren't there. We never had anything to do with the partitioning of Africa, which is a lie. Remember Edward Herzlitt? He wrote a 2-volume set too of the Berlin and Brussels Conference. And in there, he lists the representatives who had full negotiating power on behalf of the United States. As in the Berlin Conference, his name was John A. Quezon. And his title was Minister Plenipotentiary, meaning absolute power, and Ambassador Extraordinary. But America wasn't there. They sat down and partitioned off our homeland. I think it was some nations there at that time, right? 1884, it was black nations in Africa, right? Because it's black land.
Yes, sir.
But somehow it was just all Europeans partitioning our land as though we didn't exist. But here's to show you how these devils got to go. After the Berlin Conference, the thieves go away with all the spoils, plunge our people into a deeper state of hell. Then, once they realized that one of the thieves got a greater portion of stolen goods, who was King Leopold of Belgium, they gave him Mani Congo, which he called the Congo Free State. It was so large, they was pointing out how you could take England, you could take the Netherlands and a few other states, and it still would have room in that state. This is the same devil that had our foreparents working on the rubber plantation. If the rubber didn't meet its quality that they set, he would cut their hands and feet off on opposite sides, or he would make them eat the rubber or torture them. This is one. So when they saw that he had stole the most, what did he do? What any thief would do, he misdirect. Look at that over there. Let's have a Brussels conference. That's what he did. So in 1890, the thieves reconvened. We still not in the picture. So they redivvy our homeland as though we're not home. That's what they did. And then to secure their act of larceny, grand larceny, and still holding stolen goods, but haven't been indicted or charged, but God does. What did they do? They established the International Court of Law in The Hague. It's there right now, the International Court, the ICC. International Criminal Court, and the criminals established the court. Which is why the scriptures say, well, you have fellowship with the throne of iniquity that framed mischief by law. That was them. So this is what we have to free ourselves from. This is what the black man in Africa has to free themselves from. And you're going to say that, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, they don't need a new wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to keep them from getting caught up. Look at the European influence in Africa today. If you look at Kenya, you think you was in Britain, the way they formulate and wear them wigs and have their parliament set up. Anywhere you go, you will see the remnants of these white folks' way of life. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in Message to the Black Man on page 40, he said the devil is very wise. He has been successful in dominating the so-called Negro with an education that is beneficial to himself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in his 67 Sages Day, the devil didn't want us to leave him, so he made us like himself. What better way to make him us like himself than to indoctrinate us under the guise of educating us? As Dick Gregory said, indoctrination is forcing knowledge in. They call it the rote method of teaching. Education is bringing wisdom out. They call it the Montessori, bringing out your natural talents and skills. The devil did the opposite. So who has the best plan for the liberation of our people and our brothers in Africa than the program of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that he has proven and has taken around the planet, and all who have seen him or have heard of him, they bow to him. So here we are. That's what's before us. So now, after all of this, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the African is trying to free himself from the same enemy. In 1955, 29 nations, they congregated and had what was called the Bandung Conference in Bandung, Indonesia. Matter of fact, the brother Sukarno, he was the host. He led his people to independence from the Dutch. They held a conference, and it was 29 African and Asian nations, and they discussed their independence, their position in the world community of nations, and what they have to do to maintain love and unity among themselves and independence of their people. That was in 1955. 2 years after that, Kwame Nkrumah led a continental explosion of independence from colonialism when he led Ghana to independence in 1957. In fact, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote him a congratulatory letter for winning independence from the English. Yes. So they was trying, and it was a great explosion of that. You had Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya. You had Ahmed Ben Bella in Algeria. You had Sukarno, as we said, in Indonesia. All of these things was going on. So this is proof of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us about, that the problem is divine and God himself is liberating the so-called Negro, and that our brothers and sisters in Africa are trying to liberate themselves from the same enemy. And here's the evidence to prove that. So now the choice is yours. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, this is a day of decision. Accept it and live, reject it and die. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Any questions?
Can we please give the spokesman a round of applause? Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We do have a question from Sister Wahida, and it was directed to the first speaker, Brother Minister Fahim. But we had a chance to get with the Brother Minister, and we just wanted to publicly give his answer to her question. But her question was, did the Reverend say because Allah specifically made me who I am, or was the brother saying that for himself? and this is referring to his comment about Reverend Jackson, Jesse Jackson. And we said, peace, Sister Wahida. The minister said that he was quoting Reverend Jesse Jackson and using that to say that Allah made us all somebody, not specifically the Reverend. So we just wanted to put that out there. Our first question is from Brother Hassan. He wants to know, what is the significance of the word field in the New World Nation of Islam, such as field supreme minister or field major?
Yes, sir. Very good question. Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he commissioned the Field Supreme Staff, February 26, 1960 in Chicago, the field rating is a rating that is representative of a soldier. Honorable Elijah Muhammad made it clear when he commissioned the Field Supreme Staff that if you have any ministers in your mosque that has the field rating, they are to become regular ministers or nothing at all. Field is obvious, but it requires some explanation. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad commissioned Farad Savior, Ali Mahdi Muhammad, to be the Field Supreme Staff, the Field Supreme Minister, the Field Supreme Captain, to go in the field and teach until they find believers like themselves, soldiers for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, dedicators of their life to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When they have enough followers like themselves, they are to establish the model mosque, the same mosque the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us here in Newark, New Jersey in 1958. So the field rating is representative of those who go in the field for the nation, those who go into the battlefronts for the nation and establish the nation's interests. This is what the field rating represents. And we are the Field Supreme Staff. Our history is indicative of those who have been on the front line for the nation ever since our commissioning.
Yes, sir. Brother Hatem would like to know, can the New World Nation of Islam do business with white people?
Can you say that last part?
He says, he wants to know, can the New World Nation of Islam do business with white people?
Oh, yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, no new nation should isolate itself from national and international trade. See, business is one thing. Sweethearting with the enemy is another. The devil is doing business with his own devil brother, whom he's the enemy of, proving that they're disagreeable to live with in peace, even among themselves, but they don't neglect to make a profit. So, of course, we can do business because it's business, and we will operate and interact with one another based on the principles of business, because we have to do business with nations that have in their sphere that which we don't have. This is why they call it import and export. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this does not mean that we are free to integrate and sweetheart. He said that's why our borders will be patrolled like all the nations' borders, and we will have passports, visas, and all the necessary documentation. And any violators will be treated accordingly like any other nation that finds enemies of the state. But yes, we do business with the devil.
Yes, sir. Brother Rahim would like to know, he said, peace, what does God mean when he says he is going to liberate the so-called Negro?
He's going to give us just what God promised Abraham, a nation that we can call our own, on some land that we can call our own, and will punish and destroy our enemies for destroying us. This is what he means.
Yes, sir. Sister Kalima says, the devil did a good job mentally and physically enslaving our people. When their time is up, will we be ready?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, this is the day of decision. He points this out through the Holy Quran, chapter 103, wherein it refers to the time, and that those who are aware of the time and make the necessary adjustments and serve Allah, they will be ready. But those who don't, they are the ones who are called men and stones, which are fuel for the fire.
Yes, sir. Pardon me. Brother Rahim would like to know, besides other races, how did John Hawkins know to enslave us specifically?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in a Muhammad Speaks article entitled The History of John Hawkins, where he was asked, well, why didn't they enslave the Indians? Because the Indians wasn't having it. And then he mentions others of our people. Then he pointed out that the prophecy had to be fulfilled. He said that we knew every inch of our planet, and we knew the best part, the most fertile parts, or what we call the producing land parts. But yet we fell for the lie or deception of John Hawkins that there was a land in the West that had gold and diamond and other riches that far exceeded what we had, called the land of milk and honey. So therefore, we had to be deceived because the prophecy said that we would be enslaved. So we had to fall asleep to the reality of who it is we were dealing with. Remember, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, from the time that Yaqub made the devil, Allah put Islam under arrest and the scientists just sat down and we went to sleep. So therefore, that's why they were able to deceive us into the condition that we're in.
Yes, sir. We have a question from someone in the audience.
Very good lecture, Brother Minister, Brother Spokesman. In Message to the Black Man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has a Muslim 12-point code. When he opens up and says very bluntly, separate yourselves from the slave masters, we know it's blunt, but could you just give us a little explanation of that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in our Savior has arrived. He refers us to Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinketh. Says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. Now we have to identify the heart. The heart that he is speaking about is not the heart that is pumping blood coursing through our veins or our vascular system. The heart that he is speaking about is the heart that is the center of our brain, our minds. To incline our minds or our brain or our critical thinking or our just God-given common sense to that which even the what we call dumb animals of the field enforce, self-preservation, the first law of nature. So therefore, anybody who loves their own or anything that loves its own, they will separate themselves from that which is not beneficial or that which is not in relation to itself, which will prove to be detrimental to itself. But we don't have to explain to you that white folks are no good for us in any shape, form, or fashion. So therefore, this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is telling us. Separate to your own and build for yourself with your own from other than your own, which if nobody knows anything about other than their own, they know the white man. If you're not white, he is other than the black, brown, yellow, and red people. And he has a history of showing that the best thing to do is to separate yourself and do for yourself. So this is the separation portion of that particular program. Separate yourself and build yourselves up. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, take our children out of the devil's schools, our younger children. He said, once we teach them ourselves and give them all we can give them up to the ages of 18, he said, then they can go to the schools of foreign people and learn what they have because they won't lose themselves. As Hakeem Matabuti pointed out in his book, Enemies, the Clash of Races. He says in that book, only a fool would allow their enemies to be the primary educators of their children. So therefore, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we have men and women walking around here in boys and girl age, talking about our people who want to unite with the enemy instead of separating themselves and building themselves up and taking the responsibility of being men and women and gaining the respect of the nations of the earth. So this is the separation part of that idea.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We have another question from a viewer online by the name of Ali Jabbar. He said, Brother Spokesman, what is meant when our father said we love the devils because the devil gives us nothing?
Well, we don't love the devil. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was pointing out, well, put it this way. In our natural mind, which is our created mind, the mind that God gives us, which is a Muslim mind or one who submits entirely to the will of Allah, then we don't love the devil. But when you're a Negro, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pointing out that Negro comes from the Greek necro, which means dead or lifeless, a reference to the necropolis called the graveyard today, then you love your enemy because he gives you nothing. The devil calls it in psychology and Euroman, makes you love suffering. So in that sense, you love the devil because he gives you nothing if you're a Negro. But if you're a black man or woman who knows you're wrong, you don't love the devil except for him to die.
Yes, sir. We have another question from someone in the audience.
Peace, brother spokesman. Beautiful lecture. Do you see a parallel between the Africans that participated in the slave trade with the leadership in Black America participating in keeping our people ignorant and blind, deaf, and dumb to the reality of the true liberation for us as a people here in America?
Yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, they make you like themselves. He said that the devil caused us to hate self and love them. He says, in Our Savior Has Arrived on page 154, he said, there's no history of any people on our planet, past or present, who loves their enemy and hates themselves but the so-called Negro. He fostered that same idea, not to the degree that he did here in our brothers and sisters in the East. He caused them, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, and historical record bears witness, he let them preserve some of their history, but not the vital history that identified him as being who he is, the devil. So therefore, that has come down through the generations, through us, just as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the knowledge and the person of God has come down through us. So now we're at the point of a separation period, and the divide is called the truth. So we have that same history present in our people. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in the 71 Saviors Day address, his subject was operate on the nation. He said God has to operate on us as a people, collectively, universally, and take the devil out of us. So until that point, we're going to have a lot of black devils. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, sometimes it's hard to tell the devil from his little imp, except by color. There's some black folks, you rather deal with white folks, they so devilish. So yes, they did use those as slave catchers and baiters and everything else. So now today, all that comes to an end. Is righteousness or death? God said it.
Praise be to Allah Muhammad. That concludes our Q&A segment for today, sir.
So well, we thank Allah Muhammad. See, there's a still Supreme Minister, had the brothers in school and prison, 24/7 Islam, FOI Academy. He said one day you will be standing before the world to represent the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to teach the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching, to keep the Honorable Elijah Muhammad out front, to do the will of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And here we are, proving Allah does not lie and he does not die. As we turn the rostrum back to your beloved brother, minister in mine, Jamil Ali. Peace, peace.
Please continue with that applause. And our brother spokesman. One thing we do know, you're always going to get understanding and a higher learning process when you attend the teachings and the lectures of the New World Nation of Islam. They have been raised to a higher level of understanding by Field Supreme Minister Ali Mahdi Muhammad. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. And we thank the ministers who came before us today. And could you once again give both of the brothers a round of applause? Now, in closing our service for today, we would like to go over a few things here. First of all, we must give recognition to our brothers and sisters in the jails, prisons, and on death row. We, the New World Nation of Islam, have not and will not forget you, our brothers and sisters in the prisons in the United States. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad ordered us. He said, the first work of Master Farah Muhammad is to free the captive believers. We quote what he wrote and what he said, the New World Nation of Islam must obey. We will free you from prison. In the name of Allah and Muhammad. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
At this time, we would like to address registration. We would like to ask if any brother or sister heard anything that has moved you to want to join unto your own and register in the New World, Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabazz. Sisters can see the sister secretary in the rear, and brothers can see the brother secretary in the rear. For those who are watching us live via the internet, there is a page entitled Register, where you can download the registration letter, along with our post office box number, where you can mail the letter to. For those who may wish to donate to the New World Nation of Islam, anyone wishing to donate to the cause of the New World Nation of Islam, please go to PayPal and use donatenewworld@gmail.com. All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. The key to understand the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad is to know that the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad says what he means and means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he say, we must obey. The difference between the New World Nation of Islam and the Old World Nation of Islam is the New World Nation of Islam teaches the presence of Allah in the person of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, the last God of the Old World and the first God of the New World hereafter. The Old World Nation of Islam teaches that Elijah is the messenger or apostle, and that the God of 1930, Master Farah Muhammad, will return one day. Ali Mahdi Muhammad is the supreme authority over both the New World Nation of Islam and the Old World Nation of Islam. By the orders of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Allah, February 26, 1960. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time all the time. The history is already written in 25,000 year cycles. Our father, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad said, before the kingdom can come in, there must be a falling away first. And during the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day under the divine guidance of the great Mahdi will come, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our father, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is being raised by the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad here in the wilderness of North America. Will everyone please rise and follow me silently in our closing prayer? Please extend your hands as if receiving a gift. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Requital. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Amen. This is the end of our temple services for the day. Everyone, please, thank you for, and please turn your phones, take your phones off vibrate. Praise be to Allah Muhammad.
Good.